Hello, everyone. My name is Bernadette Smith. I am CEO of Equality Institute and author of Inclusive 360. Welcome to today's DEI Double Feature with my friend and colleague, Lisa Ong from Wishing Out Loud. Lisa, will you please introduce yourself to our guests, to our attendees today?
Thank you, Bernadette. It's such an honor to join you as a big fan of your Inclusive 360 book and your 5 Things Positive. So when you asked me to join you, I was excited to do so. Wishing Out Loud is my executive coaching and leadership development company. We specialize in DEI plus belonging, as building everything from strategy to implementation. And the reason we're called Wishing Out Loud is we work with clients to dream big and wish out loud. What would it be like to work at a company that allows you to double down on your strengths, be authentic, and thrive and grow? So it's a joy to be here with you today.
I love it. I love that metaphor, and I love that you share my optimism and my positivity. So that's something I've always really admired about you. Can you tell folks just a little bit about the nature of the work that you do with clients?
So what we found, I worked for 30 years for PricewaterhouseCoopers. I was very blessed to work in their National Office of Diversity as well as in their auditing department. So people, policies, procedures, right? And how do you scale for growth? And so when 2020 came around, I thought, great time to double down and launch your own business. There's so many other companies out there that need that expertise. And then, of course, COVID hit in
Right.
March. So it actually worked in my favor because I could actually scale and reach more people remotely.
Mhm.
And I had been working for 15 years remotely prior. So I just had to learn video cameras overnight. Right? My charisma on camera coach had to teach me how to frame the shot and get the lighting and all of that down. But what we do is we really sit down and listen. Our whole approach is to listen, learn, then lead with transparency, leadership by example, and caring. And we have found that recipe has consistently worked for all of our clients. Some of our clients started with employee engagement scores in the low 60s. Right? You benchmark to great places to work at consistently 80 and above.
Wow.
And simply by listening, learning, and leading with transparency, leadership by example, and caring, we were able to consistently get those scores over 80.
That's
And
great.
so if we're going to work our whole lives, we might as well enjoy where we work and create healthy environments. So I like to say I'm a talent gardener and an inclusion connector because that's what we do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And I really appreciate your joining me today because you know what? I'll be perfectly honest. I don't know much about the Lunar New Year. I have been to the celebration here once in Chicago and it was wonderful, but I didn't really learn all that much. And I know that there are probably a lot of other folks who feel similarly to me that they have some curiosity. They want to be able to show support and celebrate, but we just have questions. So I appreciate that you're third generation Chinese American. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I appreciate that you're just willing to fill us in a little bit about your own experiences and a little bit about the traditions in general.
Well, thank you so much for asking. I love how your ARC method always says ask, respect, and connect. There's not a lot of opportunities sometimes for us to share the traditions and our culture that means a lot to us. And from the surface level, people think the Lunar New Year is all food, fun, fireworks, but they don't always understand the reasons for some of those traditions.
Right.
So, like you mentioned, I identify as third generation Chinese American. So, my grandparents came to the States first, right? Brooklyn, New York, Chinatown. And they introduced me to the cultures, the Chinese New Year. So, some people use the words interchangeably. So, I just want to be for those who are not familiar, Lunar New Year is more of a collective term because there are a number of countries in Asia that celebrate the Lunar New Year. It's based on the lunar calendar. So if you're not familiar with the lunar calendar, it can be confusing because the date changes every year. So they're like, how come it's February 10th this year and it was a different date last year, right? And then the Chinese New Year's based on the Chinese zodiac, but we also have special traditions that we do that may be different than those that celebrate that have Vietnamese background or Korean background. So what I'm sharing today is how my family celebrates and what my grandparents have passed down to me, and I'm hoping to pass down to my daughter and future grandchildren as well. So when I was little, my grandparents would take us to New York Chinatown. And I remember the lights and the sounds. And as you walked through the restaurants, there were strings of red and gold firecrackers hanging from the fronts of the stores. Red is a good luck color. So that's what we're both channeling today. Right? But the firecrackers were so loud. And the louder, the better. I didn't understand when I was little. I was scared. I'd walk around like this, and I could smell the burning embers on my jacket as they were falling from the sky. But the louder the firecracks are, it scares away the bad and evil spirits. So
Okay.
a lot of times when there's a Chinese restaurant grand opening, sometimes you'll also see the lion dance and the fireworks because of that. And when they do the lion dance, you'll see the loud drums. And that's also contributing to the joy, but also scaring away any bad spirits as well. The other
Wow.
great thing about the Chinese New Year's is the red envelopes. So
Okay.
that's the one thing I really remembered as a child, because when you're a child, your relatives and your friends give you red envelopes. Now, the joy of the red envelopes is there's money in them. Not lots of money. All right, growing up, I think I got $1 or $2. So it's not going to make you super rich, but it's a symbol of wealth and prosperity and good fortune that our elders are passing on to us. Right? May we never be, be without. And so we've always continued that tradition. For those people that are like, well, can I get a red envelope if I'm not Chinese? Or is it okay? I was like, you can give money to me anytime, right? But typically it's for children and young adults. So we were teasing my daughter now that she's married. We're like, well, technically you're off the payroll. You don't get an envelope this year. But of course, her grandparents will continue to share with her. The other thing is, for the fresh new year, you should use fresh dollar bills. So you never put wadded up old dollar bills. You always use fresh envelopes and fresh money. And the envelopes are long, so you don't have to fold the money either.
Okay.
So fireworks, money, and family. So the tradition is a time to reunite with all your family. It's big dinners. And I remember like lots of extended families. So when we say family dinners, it's like my grandparents on both sides. We go to both houses, right? And multi-generational. And there were certain foods that you had to eat and have. So steamed fish, whole chicken,
Okay.
noodles for longevity, oranges. You see lots of oranges, bowls of oranges will be typical of what you see, because oranges are kind of that golden color, which
Sure.
represents fortune and wealth. Well,
I love
vitamin C.
your props today,
Yeah.
Lisa.
So vitamin C this time of year comes in handy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Those are really wonderful traditions. And I think it's what's beautiful is that it's a kind of a reminder to me that virtually every culture comes together around food and family, right? And in one form or another, those types of things come together. And good fortune. And I think that that's sort of the common ground that a lot of us have that we forget that we have.
Now,
I
I'll
was
caveat all this. Unfortunately, the cooking tradition did not pass down to me. So when people ask, oh, can we come to your house to celebrate the Chinese New Year's? I'm like, well, we cheat, we order out or we go out.
Hey,
But we do order the food. We still order the food.
you do what you got to do. It's we all have our own capacities, right? I think that's really fun. I love that those are still part of your traditions today and traditions that you're passing down to your kids. It's really sweet.
And then there's traditions around preparing your house for the
Okay.
Chinese or Lunar New Year. So usually, typically 10 days before, at least 2 weeks before, you're cleaning your home to prepare for the fresh new year.
Okay.
Right? So you don't want to sweep away your good luck on the Lunar New Year, right? And they tell you don't get a haircut because you'll cut away all your good luck as well.
Oh,
And then
wow.
you decorate your house with lots of red and gold as well, and strategic places for feng shui as well. Now, someone's like, Lisa, how can you do all that? I thought you were Christian. It's like, it's always yes and. It's not
Sure.
either or. As an inclusion leader, we try to take a little bit of everything.
Absolutely. How long does that go on for?
So it starts at February 10th this year. Typically, you'll see celebrations throughout the month of February, all the way till the day after the Lunar New Year kicks in, where the Lantern Festival comes in. So if you're working with individuals who are working in China, they may call it the Spring Festival. They may
Okay.
not call it Chinese New Year's. They may be referring to it as the Spring Festival, but it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so someone's like, well, how can I go celebrate? Thank goodness we have technology. If you just Google Lunar New Year celebrations near me, you'll see it in all the malls. Here in Dallas, the Galleria has a huge display they're putting up of 250 red lanterns for the Lantern Festival.
Oh, wow.
So some people love the Instagram moments, but it gives you an opportunity to go and celebrate with others as well.
Oh, I love that, and I didn't realize that. Like I mentioned, I've been to Chinatown, the celebration there here in Chicago, but I didn't realize that even malls were celebrating in that way. What a gift. What a gift.
It's a great way to reach new communities, right? In
Yeah,
terms of growing
absolutely.
your reach and showing your support. And I have to say, I'm excited more about the Lunar New Year this year because
Mhm.
coming off of COVID, people weren't able to go out. There were a lot of closures. And then with the anti Asian hate, there was a lot of
Mhm.
fear, a lot of shootings and
Sure.
fear. Even here in Texas, right? We had shootings here just north of where I live. So
Right.
there's always that lingering in the background, but we hope the good overcomes evil and we can continue to support one another.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think that that's a really beautiful sentiment. And I completely lost my train of thought. Oh, I was going to say, folks, I know I see some comments in the chat. If you have any questions for Lisa on Lunar New Year, please type them in the chat. We'll make sure we can answer your questions, and feel free to add some comments. Thank you so much for a bunch of you for joining us today, and for Lisa for sharing these stories. I think it is a really beautiful thing when people come together to celebrate whatever cultures or traditions from their own cultural background or from others. But I also think that some folks can be intimidated by what they don't know, right? I think that some folks are afraid of saying the wrong thing. Do I say Happy Chinese New Year? Is that the phrase? People, I think, get in their head about how to talk about these subjects. And so, actually, let me just ask the question: is Happy Chinese or Happy Lunar New Year, like, what is the greeting? What do you say there?
Right. Well, happy anything is usually is usually a good thing. And I grew up, so my family speaks Cantonese. So when I
Okay.
was growing up, we were always told to say "Gung Hee Fat Toi," which
Mm-hmm.
is Happy Chinese New Year's in Cantonese. In fact, if you didn't say it, you didn't get your red envelope. So that was one of the only Cantonese things I learned to say as a child because I was going to get that red envelope.
Sure.
But in Mandarin, you might hear it said differently, right? So there's all different ways. But if you don't speak Chinese, Happy Chinese New Year's, Happy Lunar New Year is
Okay.
wishing you good luck and good fortune, prosperity, success, and wealth.
Okay.
Who's going to fault you for that?
Right.
We can
Yes,
all use some of
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. And I just think that, a lot of times we are afraid of saying the wrong thing. I got a little comment here on LinkedIn. Yeah, people are afraid of saying the wrong thing. It applies to many areas, including disabilities. Yeah, absolutely. Education, because people don't know what they don't know. Thank you so much for commenting that. And I think that that actually kind of brings to our next question is, you know, we are often siloed for one reason or another. We often surround ourselves with people who are like us. And I think that a part of the reason that we do that is because we are afraid of getting it wrong. We're afraid of making mistakes. We're afraid of being canceled. I think those are some of the reasons. Um, and I think that we don't necessarily know how to connect. So, Lisa, do you have any advice on how to find points of connection with people who may have different traditions than us?
Now, that's such a great question. I like to say I'm an inclusion connector, and people are always saying, Lisa, what if I make a mistake? What if I say the
Mm,
wrong thing? And I'd say to them, what would you do if I told you you probably will? I
mhm.
said, that's how we learn and grow. I said, we're only human. We all make mistakes. But even I'm supposed to be a diversity, equity, inclusion leader and expert, I'm learning and growing too. But if you say you're open to feedback and you're open to learning and you're 100% committed to doing better,
Yeah.
people will coach you and provide you that gentle feedback to say, right, please say people first language when you can, or please remember to add your alt images, or always
Mhm.
turn on the closed captioning, right? They're willing to help because they know you're committed to doing better. When I want to figure out a way to connect across differences, I try to immerse myself in situations where I know I'll be the only one, because it
Yeah.
makes you uncomfortable to be the only one,
Mhm.
and it makes you more intentional in reaching out to the lost, lonely, and stuck because you know what it feels like, right?
Yeah.
When you walk into the room and you know you're the only one, it makes you think, who else is in this room feeling that way? And
Yeah.
it becomes my super spidey sense to spot people in the room that way as well. And then
Yeah.
you have to admit a little bit of vulnerability, and then people will meet you halfway. Like, oops, this is
Yeah.
the first time I've come to the National Association of Black Accountants meeting. Yes, I know I'm not Black, but I'm here because you're all about lifting as we climb and increasing the number of Black CPAs. They're like, you're in, pay your dues, you're in, right? And so
That's
if you've
wonderful.
never been in situations where you're the only one, and I've coached some CEOs who've struggled to think of times when they were the only one, look for those opportunities because it really does widen your lens to be much more inclusive.
Yeah. I think it gives us a little bit of a perspective of what does it mean to be the other? What does it mean to be excluded or on the outside? And I think that it's always humbling to be reminded of that.
Right.
I can say as a white person, I appreciate reminders of my whiteness, so I don't take that privilege for granted. So I agree. I think that's a really important muscle to practice, Lisa. Thank you.
Yeah, and just the humility, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that we don't know everything. But what
Mhm.
I found is, as an inclusion connector, I may not know everything, but I probably know someone in my network who does know. So
Yes.
someone says, you're a DI consultant, but you're friends with so many other diverse coaches and consultants. Why? I said, because I
Mhm.
can't be an expert in everything, but I can
Mhm.
connect you to
Yeah.
those who are deep subject matter experts in this space.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's get back to that theme of connection. I mean, I think finding those points of connection with others in the DEI space or outside your network in whatever way it happens to be, I think it can be intimidating, right? To put ourselves in uncomfortable situations. Of course, that's where the growth is, but it can be intimidating to take that first step. But one thing that you said earlier really kind of resonated with me, and it was about food. And again, people coming together to celebrate traditions. And I think that there's a real opportunity to use the language of tradition and culture and food to be curious, gently curious about other people. Like, what do you celebrate? I think it's just really interesting and just interesting to know. I think people like talking about that stuff in many cases.
When I go to networking events, one of my favorite questions is, what do you love to do? And I
Yeah.
purposely choose the word love to do because
Hmm.
it's open ended and it lets them talk about something that they love to do. And the energy really picks up. And
Sure.
it's much easier than saying, what do you do for work? Because there
Hmm.
are so many people in career transition right now or retired,
Hmm.
and it puts them in a box versus saying, what do you love to do? It gives me more opportunities to connect with them, to focus in on our shared loves, right? And then
I think that's
looking for
great.
those shared values, right?
Hmm.
Food, fun, family,
Hmm.
um, belonging,
Hmm.
um, doing something new, asking people, I want to learn more about the Greek festival here, and how do you buy tickets? How do you find out how to get joined? Um,
Sure.
right, what is this tradition about? Someone's teaching me about video logging or vloggers. Right, my mentees are great. They're always telling me. And even TV shows. I'm so surprised how social media and TV is continuing to diversify too. So
Hmm.
even if you don't want to go out of your house to go to these events, you can watch and experience so much through TV nowadays as well.
It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. So let me ask you, Lisa, what do you love to do?
I love connecting people.
Hmm.
I love to learn other people's stories and figure out how can I help connect them to others who can make them reach their goals and dreams. So people will talk to me and then they're like, my vision is I want to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, I'm so grateful when they share that gift with me of their vision, because it gives me excitement to figure out, okay, as a connector, how many people can I connect them with to help achieve that wish?
You
And
know,
that's
I
why we call the company Wishing Out Loud. Everyone comes up to me. I'm like, I'm going to wish out loud with you. I'm like, go for it.
That's awesome. Well, your face lights up when you talk about it. And I think that's the beauty of that question, right? Is when you ask that question and you mean it, and someone gets a chance to talk about something that lights them up. So I think that that's a really great conversation starter. Thanks for sharing it with folks.
You're
We'll make
welcome.
sure, Rita, would you mind putting that question in the chat so folks can have that as a takeaway? Is what do you love to do as a conversation starter at networking events? So, let's keep on this theme of connection, Lisa, especially with folks who are different from us. I mean, any tips that you can think of on how we can create memorable moments and find joy at work, in the workplace?
I
I
like
mean,
this
I think that
question.
that's probably where there's more diversity for a lot of us is in the workplace than perhaps in our personal lives.
I love this question because creating memorable moments is not a lot of time, right? But
Hmm.
it takes intention to plan ahead of time. And so my word for 2024 was momentum. How do we keep moving forward, but also be present in the moment,
Mm,
right? So every opportunity you are connecting with someone at work, whether it be in person or hybrid, is a chance to create a memorable moment.
yeah, absolutely.
It's the energy you bring, but it's also the space you create
Mm,
for them to bring that emotion into the space. So when
yeah.
I'm coaching some folks, I can tell right away their energy's off. I'm like, before we get started, do you need a chance just to take a deep breath? Wow, doesn't that feel good? Right? Maybe you've been in front of your computer all the time. Can we clip in our angel wings before we get started? They're like, oh man, that feels so good. Right? Um, it's creating that space for them to feel heard. Right? And even asking the question, you don't seem like yourself. Right? Do
Mm,
you need a little empathy or a little strategy today? And what
mm.
I've been finding lately is a lot of people need more empathy so that they don't burn out. Right?
Yeah.
They're putting on game face, but they're approaching crispiness in terms of burnout. And when someone says, "Are you okay? Are you really okay?" It makes a huge difference.
Mm. I love that. As you're talking about this, I can see you in your coach element. And it's this really wonderful, like, supportive vibe that you give off. And I think that folks who work with you are lucky. It's great. Great energy. Thank you. Thank you for
You're
bringing
welcome.
it into this conversation.
No, you're welcome. I tell people it's the best job in the world to be a mirror to other people's greatness, right?
Mm,
And helping them to see it too.
that's wonderful. Well, I think, continuing this conversation about memorable moments and finding joy at work, we know that some companies plan events around cultural celebrations and cultural heritage months. And I think that that's all fine and well. But I think it's important to make sure that those events are planned with authenticity, right? And that we're getting the input of the communities involved and affected as those events are planned. I think that we saw some mistakes made around Juneteenth in the past, where Juneteenth was sort of there was some bad PR for some companies around Juneteenth and how they mishandled it because they didn't really get input from their Black employees. And I think that there are lessons that we can learn about really involving people who are affected and involved and part of these communities in celebrating and uplifting the voices. So I just want to make sure that I say that, especially as a white person. And I think it's really important just to keep those voices front and center.
No, I appreciate you saying that because, as an Asian American coach and speaker, I only get a lot of calls in May for AAPI Heritage Month. And I have to say, we can create memorable moments and joy at work all year long, not just in May.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Folks, anyone who's watching, feel free to type any questions in the chat. One other thing I wanted to talk about today, Lisa, is my tool called the ARC method, which stands for Ask, Respect, Connect. And it's a tool that I've created to, in part, connect across differences. And I think that when we can connect across differences, we can have those memorable moments and create joy at work. Because I think that we tend to, like I said before, surround ourselves with people who are like us. We tend to stay in our own lane just because of how our brains are wired for comfort and safety, right? But I think that when we show some gentle curiosity about folks, like with the question, "What do you love to do?" But when we show that gentle curiosity, that's the A and the ARC method is ask. When we ask those questions from this gentle way, and then we respect, that's the R. So actively listen, genuinely care what they're saying, not interrupting, not dismissing. When we actively respect, and then connect to tie it all together, that's the C, by paraphrasing, by validating, by asking if there's help needed or support needed. Anyway, we connect it all together. When we follow all three steps of the arc, we can create those memorable moments because we are building a meaningful connection. We're looking for common ground. We're looking for realness and authenticity. And I think I've found that that's really powerful.
Yeah, that realness comes through. People can
Mhm.
tell when you're being authentic and genuine and speaking from the heart,
Yeah.
right? Because it's a generous energy versus someone who's coming at you to take.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so, folks, if you're interested in the ARC method cheat sheet, I put that link up there, theequalityinstitute.com/ARC method. We'll make sure that gets put in the chat as well. So you can download the ARC method cheat sheet. But essentially, I think that we are so afraid of saying the wrong thing that the antidote is gentle curiosity. The antidote is following the ARC. The antidote is just taking the time to be a little bit more curious about folks who are different from us. It's so simple, yet we get in our own way.
Well, and sometimes when you don't know the right thing to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes nonverbals can say just as much.
Yeah.
I love emojis like hug, hug, heart.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes just getting that little heart text is enough to say.
Yeah.
Um, so I always tell people, you don't know what to say, you can at least, express it non-verbally.
Yeah. I
And if
completely
I really have trouble saying it, I do tell people the art of the blurt. I just say, I might say this wrong, but I care. Here goes.
And I think that that's great. I think it's a great way to sort of give yourself an out because because I think that again we do get afraid of saying the wrong thing, and by admitting what we don't know up front, but it sends a signal that we're still learning. And I
Yeah.
think that that's really key in this work. In things in this field, they change, and there's a whole lot of, I mean, this work is so broad and we can't possibly know everything, right? And so I think that curiosity is so important.
Well, and I have to thank one of my mentors on the call. I see his name, Chris Simmons, on the call. He would know, he's worked with me for many years. And when I'm quiet, he knows I'm struggling to find something nice to say. And he's like, this is not the time. This is not the time to be Asian polite. What's on your mind? And so he's really helped me become much more bold and direct. So thank you for showing up here today, Chris.
That's really sweet. Very, very sweet. Well, Lisa, I really enjoy talking to you every time we talk. So thank you so much for being part of this conversation today. Again, your website is wishingoutloud.com. Let's see if we have any questions. All right. I don't see any questions in the chat. Last chance, folks. If you have any questions for Lisa or I, drop it in the chat. But otherwise, it's really always a pleasure, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share your personal experience, your memories, and your wisdom with folks. You just have such fantastic energy.
Thank you, Bernadette. And people can always reach me on LinkedIn. I'm there every day. And that's the best way to connect with me, if not through the website.
Perfect. All right, Lisa, thanks so much. Have a great week, everyone. Take care.
You too, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.